So from a downer of an experience, you were saying the terminal comes along. And can you just remind folks who was involved with the terminal?
A very up-and-coming director called Steven Spielberg. And he completely just changed my whole perspective on how to be big, how to do something of that kind of category and manage it with kindness and mindfulness, and just celebrate the core reason why we make films, and it's just to connect with people. And I had such a wonderful time. And Diego Luna, who had such a wonderful actor. He and I were like these young cats that were just, given this opportunity to be in the terminal. He had done a very remarkable movie called Y Tu Mamá También. And from that movie, Steven just, loved his performance and gave him the job. I just sent a tape. So, because Pirates wasn't even out. And I guess Steven thought that I had what it took to play this INS officer. But I remember he was just so sweet. He would invite us to set, even on days that we weren't shooting. He would always extend this courtesy invitation. And I was too insecure to accept it until one day I finally did. And I show up in my sweatpants and I had a juicy suit. Back then they were very in. And my Uggs, it was like the most expensive freaking boots that made me look like a camel, but I bought them. And I show up in my juicy suit and my Ugg boots, and I just sit next to him. And all day, in between shots, he's always, searching through his like iPod back in the day. Remember those big iPods and that were like rotary phones, like you were like looking for playlists and stuff. And he would give it to me. He's like, pick a song, because he would have these big speakers, and he would play music for his crew while they're setting up for the next shot. And I remember one day I saw this name, Nino Rota, and I picked a song from Nino Rota. It ended up being La Dolce Vita. And I remember asking Steven, I'm like, who are all these people? And he goes, oh my God, it's the Nino Rota. He made scores such as the score of The Godfather and all of the Fellini movies. And I was like, who's Fellini? Like, I had no idea. I mean, I did, but I never watched anything there. But after meeting Steven and sort of being mentored by him throughout that shoot, I remember he said something I never forgot. He goes, in order for you to know where you're going, you have to know where you came from. And that just gave me, that message resonated with me, because it meant that I needed to know the history of cinema in order for me to understand what type of cinema I wanted to be associated with, and who are the greats that I would want to model after. And so then after that, I remember I saw all the Alfred Hitchcock movies, all the Fellini movies, and yeah.
Off to the races, yeah. Now, it was not long after you made The Terminal that you first, I believe, heard about a project that would not come to screens for years and years, but was definitely going to be a big part of your life, and that was Avatar. I think, though, what I didn't know, and I don't think a lot of people know, is that you initially read for a different James Cameron project, right?
For Akira. Right, what is it called? Alita. Ay, Dios mío, perdón.
And so how did that even come about? And what was the initial, did you guys?
I think they were just misdirecting you in order for Jim to keep some kind of secrecy. They would send sides of this other project that he knew that the media knew about, but in reality, he was trying to cast Avatar without anybody knowing. And I remember that there was a casting director, Melly Finn, the late Melly Finn, who was such a wonderful casting director. She kept asking me to come in and put me on tape, and they would make me read this futuristic robot that had feelings. And I'm like, oh, okay. But then I would come back and they would say, well, then just make these sounds. And they would record me making like these these ow whatever sounds, and then she would tell me, come in like your ballet gear and just do a whole bunch of stuff, and I'll just record you dancing. And I remember one time they asked me, like, like, have you ever been to like a tropical country? Like, are you afraid of the jungle? And I'm like, what are we talking about? Like, I thought this was about the future. Like, why are we going into the past or something? But little did I know is that he was looking for Neytiri.
And you, I guess it sounds like you booked it in '06. Movie doesn't come out till '09. And a lot of stuff was going on in those intervening years, including moving to LA, where you had never lived before, right? And I guess you weren't so sure about LA at first.
Well, I'm gonna make a confession, and hopefully nobody from from Disney and Avatar will come after it. But I moved and I bought a house in Los Feliz right when I booked Avatar. I just bet on myself. I'm like, I know this is gonna be a great experience and a great project. I'm working with my idol. Like, I would watch Terminator from the moment I was 6. I know I was not supposed to be watching it at 6, but those were the 80s. It was always like dun 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 dun, and it was such an impactful film for me. So I've always had an affinity for James Cameron films, and here I am working with one of my idols. I bought this house. I know he's incredible. He's incredible, and I bought this house, but I told them that I was not a local hire, and because I didn't know how to drive, so I needed a driver. If I was a local hire, that meant that I needed to get a license and drive myself to work, and I was petrified of driving. I was such a New Yorker, and I also like I wasn't sure. I'm like, if it's not going to work, then I'll just I'll fly back to New York. But it did. I ended up having such a wonderful experience, and to know that by booking Avatar, I was going to get to work with Sigourney Weaver. It's Ellen Ripley, y'all. Like, she's the most badass mom in space. It was just incredible.
Neytiri, 9 foot tall, blue skin Navi princess, hunter, and warrior from Pandora who falls in love with an outsider, Jake Sully. This was going to be a very, a scale that probably, I don't know, in some ways made Pirates of the Caribbean even seem not. I mean, how would you compare it to the scale of Pirates?
No. I feel like The Terminal and Pirates felt like bigger films. Avatar was shot, and the way that it was conducted was such an intimate type of setting that it almost felt like it was theater like. Performance capture, I really do hope that all organizations are able to understand how much freedom it gives an actor, but also gives the actor the ability to take proprietorship of their performance. Like, it's not that it's manipulated by the animators. It's nothing like that. Whatever you put on a floor, that is recorded, things are just painted over your performance, but it's you, it's the way that you move. So we trained for 5 months to prepare for Avatar. Everything about that experience felt like going to school. It was so beautiful. I worked with Cirque du Soleil, performers that were former Olympian champions in gymnastics and archery. I had a sifu. Like, I had a coach in wushu. So I also took martial arts for 5 months. It was the most intense thing because Neytiri, the Navi, were so specific that it was not about learning karate. It was about learning wushu, because with wushu, it's the difference between the way Jackie Chan performs his martial arts and the way Jet Li performs. They're very different styles because it's 2 different forms, and the way that the form that they all had us rehearse was through wushu. was so gracious. And we were riding horses, Frisian horses, by the way, that were these big Scottish, horses with no saddle. We were learning, everybody was learning archery, but the way that the Na'vi learn how to throw, their, ¿cómo se dice? Perdón, es que el español siempre me gana. Archers, we became professional archers. I felt like I had gone to like a form of Juilliard,
Yeah. Well, another thing about Avatar, I just have to bring up. I mean, people who have seen James Cameron interviewed or met him or whatever, and know that he made The Terminator and some of these movies, I think they think of him as like this alpha male guy. And yet you have said, and it makes sense when you think about the Sigourney Weaver roles and things that he's done, that there's also, he's very in tune with his feminine side, you've said. What is that? How would you explain a little bit about that?
Well, he is a bear. I'm not very much an alpha, very curious human being, a scientist is the best way that I can describe James Cameron. He's curious about something and he figures it out. That's what he does. And I feel like science is like that. Scientists are like that. I think that someone needs to be in tune with their feminine side to capture the female experience from the perspective of a mother, from the perspective of a daughter, from the perspective of a woman that feels overlooked or forced into a life that is not her own. And all of these characters, they're easy for James to conceive or to understand. And I don't know if it's the fact that he most likely had a very beautiful relationship with his mom. And he's been married so many times, I guess. I don't know. And I'm just saying something that he said before. So I'm not, disclosing secrets here, but and he's a father of many daughters. So there's a sensitive touch to this toughness that is James Cameron. And when he delivers a woman in his stories, these women don't feel weak just for the sake of making women weak. These women feel weak because they have a journey and they have a challenge that they have to overcome. And the women, are the ones that are feeling weak, but not James writing them. I hope this makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's now take a look at Zoe in both The Terminal and Avatar.